Oh, yeah. It ain't over, motherfucker.
Till it's over.
He came here for peace.
Oh, why did it do that?
You played the wrong one! That was all just jinxed.
Click the thing. Everything's fucked up. Everything's going to hell, Jesse. Let's try this again. It might help if I record beforehand, too.
I'm done with the podcast.
There we go. Stop after. Now let's try this again, for real.
Welcome to the Dead Air Horror and Genre Podcast.
Mr. Pop.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Dead Air Horror and Genre Podcast. I'm Jeff Konopka, and tonight I'm here with Baghuul himself, Mr. Jesse the Body Bartell in his murder dungeon.
Hey, man, it's Edward Furlong's here tonight, man. It's not Jesse. What can I do for you, man?
Well, I don't know, Jesse, or Edward, Eddie. Can I call you Eddie? Is that all right?
Sorry, man. I was nodding out real quick. What's up? What are we doing? Remember when I was in that movie where I was on the motorcycle, man? And that was pretty cool. And then I was in the Night of the Demons remake. Remember that, man?
Yeah, you were looking pretty rough.
I know, man. I'm really pretty rough. Pretty rough. All right. All right. Bye, Eddie. Sorry.
Why has he always got to fuck shit up, Jesse? Why?
I don't know. I don't want him around.
I know. He's such a dick.
He
Anyway,
is.
we're here tonight. We're going to talk about a bunch of stuff, movies, things, other things that we've done, and maybe some news items, answer some questions, and then we're going to talk about the newest movie in theaters this week. Today, which is August 21st, 2015, and the movie we're going to talk about is Sinister 2, which is directed by Kieran Foy. Is that how you say his name?
Yeah, Caesarean Foley.
A.K.A. Sinisterer. So
Sinisterier.
that's a thing, and that's going to happen. And we'll get to that in a little bit. But if you're just listening to the show for the first time, basically, we get together once a week, broadcast this live. You can always find us on Friday nights most weeks at around anywhere between like 9 and 10 and whenever we're actually available. And we are at deadairpodcast.net/live. And you can find all of our back episodes at deadairpodcast.net. We're also on iTunes. We're on Facebook. We're just about everywhere else. So if you want to like our page on Facebook, you can do that. You can head over to iTunes. If you do use iTunes, please leave us a review. That'd be awesome. And if you want to help support our show here, you can, when you're purchasing from Amazon, just go to deadairpodcast.net/Amazon. I'll take you to the Amazon page, buy your shit like you normally do, and then we get a cut so that Jesse can buy diapers for himself
Yep. I
because
don't have any children.
what he does in his spare time is his
Mhm.
own business.
I'm one of those people that likes that dress up like babies, and then it's a dish thing, and then they like to be mothered, and that turns them on.
He likes it when people feed him applesauce.
Yeah, it's nothing wrong with applesauce, man.
Yeah. So I guess a little bit of housekeeping here. We're kind of nearing the end of the summer, so we had some discussions the other night to kind of talk about what we want to do, because when you start to get into like August territory, like summer movie season is over with, and a lot of the studios just dump out garbage into the theaters, for lack of a better term. I mean, there's some other stuff it's interesting, but it's never usually anything that the studios want to spend a lot of time backing, and that doesn't necessarily mean that there's nothing good to review. But we didn't really feel like digging around and trying to find something to review, so we decided, because there's jack and shit coming out for the next couple weeks in the theater anyway, that we would talk about doing a prom night retrospective, because we've kind of threatened that a few times, and I have all of the movies and have only seen the first one and decided that might as well go back and watch them. So that's probably going to happen for the next couple of weeks. I think next week, which would be the 28th, we're going to sit down and talk about Prom Nights and Prom Night 2. And then the week after that, we're going to do Prom Night 3, Prom Night 4, and the remake of Prom Night, which is just called Prom Night.
Prom night.
So that's going to be happening. And then those will end up in the feed. When they end up in the feed, they will just be all separate episodes. But if you are listening live the next couple of weeks, you will be treated to the unproduced, I guess, version, because I'm not going to put all the fancy shit that I usually do on our retrospectives on the live show, because I'm too fucking lazy. So we're just going to sit down and talk about those. So the next couple of weeks probably will not have the whole what we've been watching, and we won't talk about news or anything like that. We're just going to talk solely about the movies, because that's like 5 movies to cover, 5 featured reviews in 2 weeks. So I think that's enough, right? That's probably good enough.
I would say so.
And then we got quite a bit of stuff coming up in September. So there'll be a few shows out there in September, probably every week. And then when we get to October, that wonderful month that we all love, and we do things, and we do so much stuff that we probably are not going to have very many live shows during the month of October. So what does that mean? That probably means that the weekend of Halloween, we're not going to do a show, because we would rather do other things, because it's Halloween. And probably the weekend before that, we won't do one, because I'm not going to be in town. So there's going to be at least 2 weeks there in October, probably at least half of October, that we won't have new shows. So you can go check out all the back stuff if you want, but we'll be back in November to bring that stuff back up. And then next month in September, I kind of skipped over this, but it's because it's Friday night and today's been obnoxious, so my brain is all over the place. But we are going to have, I think on the 25th of September, we are going to be doing our 5-year anniversary show. I don't know exactly what we're doing for that, but I want to try to do something kind of special. And I don't know, like we talked about some ideas. I want to try to get some of the other folks who have been on the show before on to just talk a little bit. We're probably not going to do like a featured review. We're just going to do, it's basically probably just going to be a bunch of goofing off. We'll probably talk about some stuff, play some clips of things, not past shows, but like play some audio clips from some people and whatnot. And I don't know, we were talking about maybe trying to figure out if we could get a call-in to work for that episode. I know a couple of people have asked us to do that, and we've kind of been hesitant on it. And I think if we were going to try to do it, that would probably be the one to try it on. So we'll see.
It could all go terribly wrong, but at least it'll be interesting.
It usually all goes terribly wrong when we try to do something new.
Well, yeah, anytime we add new technology, it's just like a burning trash pile that we're just like we're throwing water on it, but the water's actually just more gasoline. And then we edit it and then we put it up for everybody in iTunes and they can listen to it.
Well, that's the other thing I was going to talk about is I have a mountain of stuff that I need to get through as far as back episodes for editing. They're all up in our YouTube feed and we've been podcasting every week, and it's been about a month since I've uploaded any new shows into the iTunes feed. So that's going to be coming. But in order to try to make it less of a pain in the ass for me and to get stuff out there faster for people, I'm probably going to do a little bit less editing and try to move into what you hear here is what's going to almost exactly be in the iTunes feed. And what does that mean? Well, that means that I'm probably going to streamline some stuff over the next couple of months so that I can get the breaks in between the segments a little bit more defined and maybe basically not just play music and walk away. I'll just play something else that I don't care if it stays in the normal podcast because it's not necessarily infringing on anything. I don't care because if it's on YouTube, I don't care if it's on the YouTube feed because I figure, well, that's not a problem. But actually putting some stuff into the show might be a little bit more dicey. So the goal is that eventually when that happens, we'll record the show and then either the same night or the next morning, it'll show up in iTunes. So tonight, I'm going to kind of try that. So I don't know. We'll see how that goes. See how this all works out. I'm recording it now. I moved some stuff around. So hopefully everything sounds good for everybody out there because I'm paranoid that my levels are going all over the place tonight. But they don't seem to be so far.
No, you sound good.
You sound good.
Yeah, got that olive oil voice.
Yeah, you got that sexiness going on there.
Mm-hmm.
So aside from that, I mean, that's all the housekeeping for this week. Unless you got anything that you want to talk about, Mr. Bartell.
I'm really into manscaping. That's how I get these eyebrows so perfect, right? That's how I get this face so smooth. Actually, the trick is that I can't grow facial hair, so nothing actually comes in.
I'm just lazy. The only people are like, "Oh, you got a beard or whatever," and I'm just like, I don't like to shave.
You're such a hipster, Jeff. God.
Nah, man.
Why don't you go throw some oil on that beard?
No, fucking mustache wax and shit.
Mustache wax.
Those fucking dudes like shaping their mustaches. That's too much, man. That's when you've gone too far. You've gone off the deep end.
Mm-hmm.
That's some like Snidely Whiplash type.
That's
shit.
where you're like out at sea on the boat, but you're like you jumped off the boat and you're swimming out in the waters, and everyone from the boat's calling back like, "Come back, come back!" And you're like, "No, it's fine." And then the pirates come, and they go, "I'm the captain now."
I'm the captain now. We do have a question from Phil Faso in the Q&A here, and he's asking if there's any chance that we will do an episode on a horror flick that's not brand spanking new, or we beholden to whatever the new week's theater release dictates. Well, we try to do whatever is new in the theater, but on the weeks where there isn't stuff that's new in the theater or stuff that's new on VOD, brand spanking new or whatever, we do tend to try to do other things. Like the retrospective series are a good example of that because I tend to think that those are fun to do. I suppose there's been times when we've done a few one-off older stuff.
We did that Anchor Bay thing last summer.
Yeah, we did do that last summer. And I guess it's one of those things where what I may do eventually, like I got some plans for next year, as in like actually getting like the website up so that it's a little bit more interactive and whatnot. And I was thinking about actually putting polls up there for the weeks that we're not sure what we want to do to like let people vote on what we're going to review, I guess. But we'll probably do some of those as well. But it's kind of like one of those things where we have so little free time a lot of the times, and we go to the movie theater anyway, so we just talk about the new stuff. Plus, it gives me a reason to actually go to
The theater.
the theater as well. It gives me an excuse because then it's like, oh, I gotta go see this movie because we gotta do the podcast on it.
And it all works out.
Sometimes-
Plus, there's like there's plenty of podcasts that go over old movies anyway.
Yeah, there is that as well. But I don't know. It's one of those things where sometimes maybe Chad is still going after us reviewing the spookies on the show. But I almost think that would be more fun to do a live watch of that because
Yeah, like Shakma.
like some Friday or something. Like not necessarily like a commentary track like Shakma. Like I think we had more to say about the spookies. I don't even know what happens in that movie, and I've tried to watch it like twice. So
Awesome.
yeah, it's it's pretty fun when there's other people around. But if you try to sit down and watch that fucking movie by yourself, forget about it. I don't think I could do it. I don't think I could. So anyhow, that's what's probably going to be coming down the pipeline. So I don't know, like if there's been anything interesting going on this week, news-wise, really. I know the plague is back, apparently. That's a thing.
Plague?
Again, yeah, the plague, man. Like some kids were camping and they got the plague. Literally, like the capital P plague.
Like they're getting like the consumption.
Like from rats and shit.
Oh my god.
Yeah, like the fucking Black Plague, man. Apparently that's back. And then a shark tried to eat somebody again because people won't learn.
Don't go in the water. How about that?
Pretty
also, yeah, like Sean Bean's gonna show up now, and he's gonna go to the village that has the Black Plague, and he's gonna wonder why nobody has it. He's gonna call them witches.
Fucking Sean Bean, man.
I know,
The
man.
movie's pretty alright though.
Yeah, Black Death was all right. Talk about a miserable movie though. Like the movie was so depressing.
Well, and then like where it ends up going though is like kind of bananas towards the end of it. So
It's a wild movie.
yeah, for sure.
Check it out if you want to kill yourself. Like, not that it's bad, but it is just so. It's just. So
Well, were you
dour.
expecting the times when the Black Plague was around to be happy, Jesse?
Yes. I wanted Sean Bean to coast in on our fucking rainbow, and be like curing everybody.
There's just like, I'm Ned Stark.
Well, that was like around the time when he walked off the set of Lord of the Rings, and then he walked on to Black Death, and then he walked off the set of Black Death right onto the first season of Game of Thrones, like all in the same outfit. I don't think his outfit changed.
I was gonna say, I think he was wearing the same costume. They were getting a lot of production value out of that one costume.
Good for Sean Bean.
Yep. So, but yeah, that's pretty alright movie. But yeah, the plague is back. There wasn't really a whole lot else, I think, with movie news this week, or at least that I paid attention to. But I didn't really read the internet this week.
Yeah, neither was I really. I didn't see anything that was like people were freaking out about. I mean, yeah, nothing. I got nothing. But I didn't see anybody too angry this week, so I guess nothing happened. That's all I can say.
Well, I'm guessing that everybody's going to complain about Sinister 2 pretty soon. That's going to be the thing that everyone's going to complain about.
Oh yeah, it's still
Because-
Friday. I forgot.
Yeah, it just.
I don't
just
know. I
came
don't know
out
how it's
today.
gonna. I don't know how it's gonna do with people. I mean, I'm sure they'll complain about it, but I don't know. I wonder if it will do well at all. We'll see.
I think it'll do well. So you look at what else is opening.
Was it like Hitman coming out this week or something?
Hitman and American Ultra were the other two,
Right.
and quite frankly, and we'll talk about this in a little bit when we talk about what we've been watching. But American Ultra is probably a little more weird than some of the mainstream folks might want to sit down and watch.
Mhm.
And Hitman is like, why did they make another fucking sequel to that movie? They're making like a sequel to the sequel that was from the movie based on the video game that nobody went to see in the first place.
Yeah, I'm not sure why they keep pumping that for. I don't know why they think that's going to be like a lucrative franchise for them. You know, like it does well as a game, but I don't know why they think. I don't know who has that property, but why they keep thinking that it's going to like. Well, we can turn this into like a transporter like movie or something. So let's do that. And then another transporter, which I'm also surprised about, but I don't know. I think Transporter has a better chance than a new Hitman movie.
Yeah, I don't think that Transporter movie's gonna do very well though, like the new one. But
No, it looks terrible.
I don't know why they're putting it in IMAX. That's ridiculous.
Well, yeah, I mean, it probably won't even it'll just be blown up. It won't even be for IMAX.
You better share a Coke with Bethany, Jesse.
That's my drag name. That's her
Bethany
name.
Bartell.
That's right. Bethany's a bitch. She comes out after a few drinks, let me tell you.
Yeah, she get crazy.
She gets a little crazy. Sucks a mean dick, I'll tell you.
But the nice thing is since we're almost in September, that means it's almost fall, like for reals.
And that's like the best time of the year.
It's my favorite time of the year. So pumpkin beer is flowing tonight. Right now, I'm drinking from the fine folks at Uinta Brewing. It's all backwards in the camera, but it's pumpkin, which is pretty good. And I got some other ones upstairs as well. This is the time of year when my wife hates when I go beer shopping, because I just come home with like every single pumpkin beer that I can find. Even the ones that I didn't like last year, I buy them again, just hoping that they're going to taste different. And then they don't.
You're like an Alzheimer's patient.
And then I'm like, why did I do that? Why do I always hold out hope? But you know what? Pumpkin beer. And everyone's like, too soon. And I'm like, you know what? Fuck you. It is not too soon for pumpkin beer. That's what I'm saying. I just don't understand. Like, people don't understand how supply and demand works, right? Like, if they put out the pumpkin beer in September, then they've only got like 4 weeks to sell it.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous.
Bad idea. Bad news, man.
Bad news bears.
Pretty much. So, yeah. So, I guess that's it really for all that stuffs. Did you want to take a break and then talk about what we've been watching? Does that sound like a good idea?
That sounds rad, Jeffrey.
Yeah. Usually the only people that call me Jeffrey are gay men and women when they're angry at me about something.
It's one of the two right now, Jeffrey. It's one of the two right now. Wait, I gotta tell you my Bon Jovi story.
Oh, what's this Bon Jovi story? Was he in the bookstore?
So Bon Jovi came into my job. And I've run into him before, so he's like this ongoing ridiculous thing. But he came walking into the bookstore, and he was like shouting how he's like, well, I just read on the iPad now because it's a lot better, and blah 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 blah. And
wait,
like,
he just walked in and was just shouting this?
No, he had his son with him, or he had some small. I don't know if it's his son. I don't really follow Bon Jovi's personal life very well.
Bon Jovi just picking children up off the street.
Pretty sure it was his male child, and Bon Jovi came in and he's like, I need a book on Aaron Burr. I need a book on Aaron Burr. And he's just kind of like shouting it. So we didn't have any books specifically on Aaron Burr. And if you don't know who Aaron Burr is, he's the guy that shot Alexander Hamilton in a duel. And he wanted a book specifically on Aaron Burr. And we didn't have it. And he was like, whatever. And then his son knocked over, like, we had like a Monopoly like display thing, and his son knocked it over. And his son's, you know, he's not like a toddler. He's like, the kid probably had to be like 14, 13 or something like that. Kid knocks it over, then Bon Jovi goes, yeah! And then he gives his son a high five, and then they left. And they didn't pick up the Monopoly display.
What the fuck?
Yeah. So, you know, that was my Bon Jovi experience.
And no, Phil. Chad Worth's
Jersey.
love is not like bad medicine. It's more just like bad farts.
Yeah, it's like that feeling you get after you eat really shitty food and you have to just shit in the toilet, and it just keeps coming out and your stomach cramps up. That's what Chad Worth's love tastes like.
Pretty much. Oh, and if anyone's wondering, Chad is not with us this week because
He's passed away.
No, Oh, R.I.P. Chad, I guess.
R.I.P.
You gotta
Chad.
throw in the R.I.P. R.I.P. Baghuul. But his mom is in town, so he's hanging out with his mom right now. So
If you know what I'm saying.
this is what we do. This is the exciting lives that we live. Jesse's in a bookstore right now. I spent the day making beer and then cleaning up the mess and then killing giant fucking spiders that came into my house. And Chad is hanging out with his mom because, being an adult is fun. So anyway, now that Jesse has told everybody what a dickhead Bon Jovi is, don't let Bon Jovi in your bookstore.
Don't let him into your house.
We're going to take a break. And if you have any questions, don't forget the Q&A is open. And if you don't want to use the Q&A, or if you're watching on YouTube or whatever, then you can tweet at us with the hashtag #DeadAirPodcast and ask us your question. I know we've got a bunch of them there. We will get to those. We will probably do those after what we've been watching. So before the main review. And I think that's about it. So let's take a break here. We'll come back and then we'll talk about movies and stuff and things and boobs.
Boobs.
Because I like boobs. Everybody does. And if you don't, you're communist.
Yeah, if you don't, you like Stalin or something.
Goebbels.
You like gerbils.
Gerbils. Oh, Goebbels Gerbils. Is that his new shop? So we'll be back in a few minutes.
Then you feel the pain,
4 seconds.
the pressure,
3 seconds.
the pounding,
2 seconds.
the terror.
Goddamn internets.
You begin to self-destruct. Experience the terrifying power of scanners. Their thoughts can kill.
Out a car.
What is it?
Freedom. What will this dream machine be as taken out of Springwood?
This car kicks.
Alex, please slow down.
Or send him on a highway to hell?
This car has a history, you know. So it's a death car.
Only Freddy knows for sure.
This baby comes with my guarantee.
On the next Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy's Nightmares.
Hi, this is Davia. I am from the Exorcast. Every week, we talk all about pornography, beards, and horror movies. I used to have a co-host named Vincent, but he is off somewhere playing with dildos and dressing up like Judge Dredd. So, now I have a guy named Chuck and another guy named Newsfinder General, and we have more fun without Vincent because he is a sack of shit. We love the Dead Air guys. But James is a little rapey. Jeff is too drunk. Jesse thinks he is Nick Cage. And Sean. Well, I don't know where Sean is. Probably at a gas station giving hand jobs. So, when you are done listening to these assholes, you should go to exorcast.com and listen to us, assholes. I am sorry that I sound like a robot. but I have not given Jeff a new bumper in a long time. So he had to make this one. Go fuck yourself. Exorcast.com. Bitch. The power of pornography compels you. Thank you.
And that was a bumper for our friends over at Exorcast. So you can check them out at exorcast.com or exorcast.com because that's what it sounds like on there. And it's Chris, the one and only Chuck Connors, who has a movie coming out on Tuesday that you can buy, Morbid. You can get that on Amazon. So yeah, go to the deadairpodcast.net/Amazon and buy Chuck Connors Morbid on DVD. I think it's like $7 or something. It's pretty cheap.
Yeah,
get that. Good time. I got it pre-ordered. I'm gonna watch that shit next week. So we'll probably talk about it at some point.
I'm just gonna watch it and compare the transfer. just gonna pick apart the quality, how many pixel, the pixel quality of it.
Yeah.
Because that's film reviewing now, by the way.
Yeah, we can talk about that at some point, but not right this minute. But yeah, Exorcast, check those dudes out. And Chuck also has a couple other podcasts that he does, which is one of them is just all Goosebumps stuff. I don't remember what it's called. It's just like the Goosebumps podcast. And the other one is, what the fuck is it? Zombies Don't Podcast.
Don't run. Zombies Don't Podcast.
Yep.
Yep.
Thing. Mr. Chuck Connors. When he's not rapping, he's podcasting.
He's really branded himself, you know.
He really has. Zombies Don't Chuck Connors.
Zombies. R.I.P. Chuck Connors.
R.I.P. So yeah, check those dudes out, exorcast.com, and they are, in iTunes and Stitcher and all those other fancy places as well. So good dudes. So now it's time to talk about movies that we've been watching. So movies and other things. I don't know. Have you watched a bunch of stuff this week, Jesse? Or
I watched a movie that we can talk about.
Okay.
It's called Sinister 2. No,
well,
I watched...
Gonna talk about that later. Jesse, don't ruin the show.
I'm sorry! I watched Cop Car, starring Kevin Bacon, and that guy who's a character actor sometimes. And I can't think of his name, but he shows up.
A lot of those guys.
Yeah, there's a lot of those guys.
Was it fucking Michael Pena?
No, it's not Michael Pena.
He's in every other movie this year.
He actually plays the cop car. So some kids steal Michael Pena and they like ride him through the desert. And they then he makes a bunch of stereotypical Mexican jokes and everybody laughs at him. And then they ride him around and then Kevin Bacon wants his Michael Pena back. So he Pena. Yeah, so then he shoots the kids and then he steals Michael Pena back. That's not actually how the movie goes. So Cop Car, hold on a second. Cop Car is a film that was John Watts directed it. And he co-wrote the screenplay and he produced it, but it's essentially about these two kids who are wandering through, I think, Colorado, like the rural area of Colorado, and they're probably, a little over 10, and they've run away from home, and it starts with them like just shouting curse words back and forth because they're bored, and they stumble across this deserted cop car, and they steal it, and basically it's Kevin Bacon's cop car, and he was off. It's not a spoiler to say that he was burying a body while they stole the car. And so the impetus for him trying to get the car back is that he has other stuff in the cop car that would point blame at him for a bunch of very bad... He's a bad cop, but everybody thinks he's a good cop. So he's gonna get the kids and get the cop car back, and he does some crazy shit to get it back, and it gets scary and violent. And but it's a good movie. It's a good genre movie. There's not a lot to it. I mean, what I told you is essentially all that there is. There's no real bigger picture or bigger storyline. It's just Kevin Bacon acting like a maniac trying to get his cop car back, and the kids somehow avoiding him, and it's fun. It's fun. It's more fun to watch Kevin Bacon like out Kevin Bacon himself, because I like it when he plays a bad guy, like when he did it in Super. And yeah, it's I recommend it, but just don't really, I don't know, expect too much. It's an interesting movie. It's a weird movie, and I'm it seems appropriate for them to release it the way they did. I don't think it would have done well otherwise if they were to do like a huge release for it.
Kevin Bacon is cop car.
It's basically like Maniac Cop, but not all disfigured. And
Maniac cop car.
Maniac Bacon.
Or as Phil Faso says, Wolf cop car.
And so then at the end he gets Michael Pena, and it's all good. But no, I totally recommend Cop Car. It's pretty funny and weird, and it feels remote as much as the a lot of the film takes place in very remote areas, and the movie itself just feels very remote. It's a strange experience, but I highly recommend it.
Right on.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Sorry, Edward Furlong showed up again.
Mom! Anyway. Todd and Janelle are dicks. Fuck Edward Furlong. Did you watch anything else? That's it?
I rewatched The Social Network. That doesn't really apply here. I've been trying to rewatch or watch again or watch for the first time like David Fincher movies for whatever reason. Because I love David Fincher, and I'm trying to figure out what it is I like about him, because whenever I think about him, I'm like, well, what do I really like about him? And it's like, Benjamin Button's not that great of a movie, and like, I don't know, like he's had a few misses, but for whatever the reason is, whoever he has is like director of photography, and how he chooses to like line up shots and characters and stuff, I think he does a very interesting. He's interesting for a guy who's like a hired director. He doesn't really do his own stuff anymore, but or never really did his own stuff. But I mean, it's yeah, he's cool. I don't know. Social Network still holds up.
Well,
it's still,
he's a for hire director, but he's also a once I'm gonna make this movie, I'm making it the way that I want to fucking make it.
right, exactly.
And it's going to be exactly as I want to make it. So he's not really a for hire director. He's because for hire directors are just kind of like, oh, give me a fucking movie and I'll just put something out.
Right.
Oh, you want to change it? That's cool.
And like for The Social Network, like Aaron Sorkin did the script, and he did like, I don't really like Aaron Sorkin's stuff too much, but like when he does it with someone who's gonna like rein him in a bit, it works really well. And like Social Network is a good example of that, where he doesn't get like overzealous with his like preachiness, and they do a good job with that. But I like that movie still. I mean, it's not a movie that is like, you know, the replayability is up there, but I definitely just been trying to look back on some David Fincher movies, and that's in the you know, that Reznor and Atticus Ross score he did for that, and then he did it for Gone Girl and Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I think they teamed up together, but the soundtracks are just so good on that, or scores at least are so good on those movies. So that's all I got, man.
It's all you got.
Just check out Social Network in theaters now. Playing in a theater near you.
Maybe like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
That was 2010, I think, right? Something like that.
Yeah, I think so.
It's been a while. Been a while since Stained was relevant at all.
Were they relevant?
Let's see here. I'm pulling up what I've been watching because my brain is not working too well. So I guess we could start by talking about Game of Thrones, because I've almost caught up on that. I got to watch season 5 still, but I have managed to make it through the first 4 seasons of that show, and it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I don't know if it's necessarily as shocking as everybody told me that it was, like being like, "Oh my God, you won't believe what the fuck happened," and it's like, no, it makes sense that they killed that guy.
Yeah, nothing ever happens that's ever too crazy. Like the craziest one is probably the Red Wedding, but that's only because it's so gruesome that it's just like, oh, okay, we're doing this now. All right, okay, okay. And that was the only one that I felt like a real sort of that one I felt only like a real sense of shock, I guess, even though I knew it was coming, but it was so visceral that it grabbed me. But it kind of was within the context of the story, it totally makes sense. Everyone thinks he's oh, well, he kills off the main characters. It's so shocking. And it's well, I think he sets it up pretty well with a lot of them. So it's not that.
Well, he does. And there's so many quote unquote main characters that actually somebody was talking about this because they did the Emmy nominations, right? Mm-hmm. And whatnot. And there was no leading actors or anything nominated from Game of Thrones. Like pretty much everybody is considered a supporting actor because there's so many of them that there's not just you know what I mean? There's not just here's the main person.
Yeah, this is the main person for this movie or TV show.
And it's they just move everything around. But I do like the fact that since it is a TV show that has, an hour-long running time, that they can do stuff like they did at the end of season 4, where the episode right before the last one is basically just an hour-long battle sequence.
Yeah, it's like Helm's Deep or something in Two Towers.
Well, I'm saying it's pretty fucking badass, and it works pretty well that way. And it's just see, this is what's cool about TV, is they could do this. And it's not a problem. That's half the movie. But if there was a movie and half of it was a fucking battle, the third Matrix movie, I don't know if I could handle that because that movie sucked.
That movie was rough.
And then I was like, look, Neo is Jesus. Get it?
We get it. Yeah.
Crucifying him. Oh, Keanu Reeves on the cross.
Thank you, Wachowski. Thank you.
I would watch a movie, though, where Keanu Reeves was literally playing Jesus.
That'd be, yeah. Turning water into wine and fucking
sad Jesus.
Sad Jesus. Jesus, John Wick 2 where he plays Jesus.
Well, John Wick 2's coming. And
I know.
They did have that one dude, Theon Greyjoy, was in John Wick. That was really weird for me because I had never seen Game of Thrones, and then I was like, hey, it's that guy from John Wick.
Well, now you'll see these people pop up in randomly at different movies as small bits, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, okay, yeah.
I just saw the trailer last night for that fucking Vin Diesel movie that's coming out in I think October.
The Wildling girl is in there.
Yeah, she just randomly shows up and she's just like, I'm a witch. I'm gonna make out with Vin Diesel. And I was like, what the fuck is going on here? Where did she come from? And since when is Elijah Wood in this movie?
Yeah, I know. He just shows up.
Because all of the other trailers had nothing to do with Elijah Wood, and now it's Vin Diesel with the fucking beard. And he's just you know what I'm afraid of? Nothing. And I was just like, really? Vin Diesel? Really?
It's hot. So.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna be reviewing that one on the show. I will probably watch it, but Jesus fucking Christ. But no, so Game of Thrones pretty good. I know I've heard mixed things on the 5th season, but I'm gonna watch it. Obviously, I got to get through that, and then I can go back to watching movies. Although I did watch a bunch of other movies this week, so I did sit down and watched. So last weekend I rewatched Billy Madison because I just decided I wanted to get drunk and watch something stupid.
Did it hold up?
Yeah, it was pretty funny. I enjoyed it. I especially like the fact that Mario Kart physics exist in that movie, where you drive over a banana peel and you fall off a cliff. So that was pretty good. And I watched Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story.
There you go. It's pretty good.
It's all right. It's pretty funny. I don't know. Some people seem to absolutely love it. It's better than I thought it was gonna be, but I was definitely not expecting somebody to get cut in half in like the
Right.
first 5 minutes of the movie. And
Yeah,
he's just like, "Oh, you cut me in half." It's like, what the fuck?
It's a weird movie.
It's a really weird movie because it's almost like a spoof, but it's not quite a spoof, and it's not quite a satire. But it's not
just
quite
like-
serious. Like
when he and they when they're like he goes to his musical change and he like does the Bob Dylan one.
yeah.
Pretty good impression of Bob Dylan.
So I watched that, and then I also watched that movie Grandma's Boy because it's on Netflix now.
You've never seen that?
No, it's another one that everybody loves, and I was just like, this isn't really. It's all right.
I like it.
I don't know if I'm like maybe I'm too old, but I don't know. It just didn't.
I'm not tan. I'm bronzed. And then the monkey's driving the car at the end.
Like it just like there was a few parts that made me kind of laugh, but I was just like the main guy. I'm just like because for the longest time I thought somebody else was the main guy in the movie. I didn't realize it was just some guy that I've never really heard of.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, it's
and then the mother from Everybody Loves Raymond showed up, and I was just like, all right, I don't know if I can handle this.
But my favorite takeaway from that film is when he calls his parents the roommates.
Yep.
And he has the racer car bed. He's like, I gotta check with my roommates if it's okay. I was like, I know it's your parents. You can just say it's your parents.
He's like, I came on your mom. It's like, it's all right. You can still stay for dinner if you want. Really? Like, why is he jerking off to a Barbie doll?
Yeah, it's a questionable movie, but it has its moments.
It's definitely stupid, but no.
Yeah. And they're making like that weird Predator video game, or whatever it is.
Yeah. And last night I saw American Ultra, which I just want to talk about for a minute because I fucking loved that movie. It's pretty great. Kristen Stewart and Jesse Eisenberg. And apparently if you tweet things about things that Kristen Stewart is in, everybody and their mother will, like, all these fucking Kristen Stewart fans just sit on Twitter and look for stuff and then retweet it and favorite it, because I got like it's up to like 70 or 80 fucking retweets off this tweet that I put out there, and I was just like, Jesus fucking Christ, my phone was just going off all last night. I had to literally turn it off at one point, turn off the notifications because it was just going off like every couple minutes. But it's actually, it was better than I thought it was going to be. I mean, I was looking forward to it for sure, because I was like, all right, well, Max Landis wrote it, and you know, I like Chronicle, like the movie, the Masters of Horror episode that his dad did that he wrote, which I think was like one of the first things he did, which was that Deer Woman. That was pretty good.
Yeah.
I like the video that he did on YouTube of Superman.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I follow him on Twitter, and some of the stuff he says is sometimes kind of like hipster douchey, but I think he's solid as a writer and interesting. And I think that he takes things that might otherwise just be like kind of pedestrian and makes them, you know, interesting, right? So it's nothing like absolutely mind-blowing new, but he does it pretty well, you know, and the dialogue isn't stupid and terrible. And this was one of those movies where I was like, okay, well, this looks like it's a cross between like Pineapple Express and The Bourne Identity or something. So it's like Jesse Eisenberg is like this fucking pothead who then finds out that he has all these like super skills and can kill people. And that's kind of what it is, but there's a lot more to it. And there was a bunch of other people that showed up in the movie that I wasn't expecting.
For Grace.
Bill Pullman shows up and shit. And I'm just like, what the, like, whoa, it's Bill Pullman, and he's super old now. But it's surprisingly, so it's, number one, it's surprisingly fucking violent and gory. Like, there's just, I was not expecting that much graphic violence in the movie. And I'm not complaining because I thought that was pretty awesome. And also was not expecting that it was going to actually kind of be like as sentimental touching as it is in some spots, because it really takes the relationship stuff pretty seriously for a movie where Jesse Eisenberg is stabbing people in the throat with forks or with spoons. So it's pretty crazy. And I don't necessarily, like I said, I don't know if it's something that is gonna necessarily like light the box office on fire or anything like that. I'm not even sure if it's something that the mainstream public is aware of. They certainly stuck it in the back tiny theater or tiny auditorium at the theater that I go to. It was like stuck in the smallest screen. And there wasn't there. I think there was maybe like 2 other groups of people there besides me. So there wasn't that many people, but it was a Thursday night at like 10 o'clock at night when I went to see it. But it's one of my favorite movies that I've seen this year, hands down. So I definitely think people should check it out. So if you haven't seen it, go watch it. And if you haven't seen Sinister 2, I'm not going to spoil our review, but I would say if you had a choice to see only one movie this weekend, go see American Ultra. Because it's really, really good on a lot of levels. It's funny, it's violent, it's got feels.
I like feels.
Feels are good when they're done right, and it's done right. And you know what? Like, all these people talk shit about Kristen Stewart because she was in like the Twilight movies and whatnot. And so yeah, I'm not defending the Twilight movies or anything, but she's pretty good in a lot of other stuff, and I don't think she gets as much credit as she probably deserves.
Well, I like the 2 of them in Adventureland together.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing, is like the chemistry between the 2 of them is there for sure. And I love Adventureland personally. I think that's a super underrated movie.
That's a Long Island centric film.
Yep. It was basically like Greg Mottola's life.
Mm-hmm.
So he was just like, yeah, this is something that I did, super personal to him, and I love it. Like, I think that's actually, after I was done watching American Ultra last night, I was like, man, I just want to watch Adventureland again. So I'll probably watch it this weekend again, because
it's a good movie.
Yeah, I've seen it a whole shitload of times. I absolutely that was one of those ones where when it first came out, like, I rented it, and I think the weekend that I rented it, because I had it for like 2 days or whatever, I watched it like 3 times pretty much within 2 days. So it was definitely something that I liked quite a bit, and I still love it. So, but yeah, check out American Ultra. It's good stuff. And let's see here. There was something else that I saw. Oh yeah, so I rewatched Sinister. So we can talk about that now, or do you want to talk about that when we do the review for the new one?
We can talk about that now. I haven't seen it since it came out, so I don't know how much I'll have to say. I mean, I'll have some input, I guess, but.
Well, I haven't seen it since it came out either, and I was like, you know what? I should go back and rewatch this. Like, I remembered liking it for sure, and I remembered it being pretty creepy. I remember really thinking that the score was fucking creepy, and then obviously I remember like fucking corpse paint guy chilling,
Nick Thompson,
and I like Ethan Hawke, right? So I think he is a good actor. For sure.
Well, he's the best part of that movie.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, the reason that the first Sinister movie is good isn't necessarily because of like Baghuul, right? Like, you have like a good character setup where you have this guy who is basically, he's at odds with himself, because he says over and over throughout the film that he's not just trying to write for fame and money, but he's definitely just trying to write for fame and money. Like, and you have this story where it's like this interesting thing about this guy who's a really smart guy who wrote this book and actually like helped somebody, but then let himself like help somebody get off of death row when they were innocent because the cops screwed up. And then he ends up being like, all right, well, this is what I'm going to do, and gets it to the point where he's actually causing more harm than good, and kind of takes everything to the extreme level where he's ends up like moving into the house where these people died. So, not really cool on the surface, but it's really like his character's journey, because the rest of the stuff that's in that movie is not really super surprising. I mean, there's a few twists and whatnot, and the home video stuff is pretty fucking creepy. But again, like, I would challenge you to watch the videos from that first movie and turn the sound off, and they're not very scary at all or creepy. But once you put that sound mix on there with that weird fucking like noisy ambient, like really weird music that I think is Christopher Young did the score for it, and it's unsettling, like very unsettling. And they keep showing you this stuff over and over and over again, and it kind of like lulls you into this thing. And it's something that they touch on, obviously, in the new one. They kind of get into it a little bit more, but I mean, it's good. It's creepy. It's not amazing. Like, it's not the best thing ever. And I definitely, I wasn't as creeped out by it this time, I don't think, as I was the first time that I saw it. But I think, the first time I saw it was in a movie theater. It was a big screen, really loud, and just, I think I was a little bit more unsettled by it. And this time around, I was like, all right, that's good. And I get what they're doing at the end. And, I can see where they would take this and try to spin it off, because it did very well. I think it ended up making like $80 million or something like that. And it was made for like, it was probably like $1 million or something. So, it made money. So of course they're going to make a fucking sequel. Like, if you had the chance to make like $79 million in profit, wouldn't you? You know what I mean? So it's good. I don't know if you have anything else to add on that particular one.
I really like. I wasn't like nuts about Sinister, like, because that was the same year like The Conjuring came out, right? Or am I confusing the two?
No, it was 2012. And Conjuring was 2013, I think, right?
Okay. But I remember I saw it and I wasn't nuts about it. I liked it, and my favorite part was the Ethan Hawke stuff, where it was like a Stephen King story, like the writer trying to create art or to create something, and then they are, there's this force that is like kind of like either the metaphor for their work, or there's this other thing that is becoming, the deeper they go, the more that it comes out and is devouring their life, kind of thing. And that's the aspect that I really liked about it. I thought Baghuul was lame from day one. Like, I just think that, his origins might be nice and creepy and stuff, but like him as a character in form, he looks like another member of Slipknot. He's not scary to me. The only time I ever get like spooked by him is when they always just like have to do some sort of really bad jump scare, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, okay, we get it. But like, I'm never like I don't think about Baghuul and I'm like, oh my god, like it creeps me. It's not like the old lady from Insidious or old guy from Insidious. Like that scare, like thinking about that creeps me out. Baghuul does not scare me, and like the whole like dead kid stuff also not like the scariest stuff either. Like, I think like it's just kind of, it doesn't really work for me. But I thought that the content of the first one was interesting enough that it, I liked it, and I thought they could do even more with it. So yeah, it's that's what I really remember the most from that movie. And I liked Ethan Hawke. Like, that was around the time when Ethan Hawke was like, I'm going to do a bunch of like independent horror stuff, or at least low cost horror stuff. And yeah, it was an all right movie. That's what I got to say about that.
Right on. Yeah. So I mean, I liked it, and I definitely liked it more than the one that we're going to talk about. But it's good stuff. So if you haven't seen it, you should check it out. I think you can get the DVD and Blu-ray like really cheap right now. So it's definitely worth watching. So check out Sinister if you haven't seen it yet.
Sinisterer.
Sinisterer. All right, so let's do some of the questions that we got here. So we got a bunch of stuff that's coming through Twitter. It looks like Paul has just been going nuts on the Twitters right now. So we'll get to him in a minute. But let's see here. So first question was from Paul on Twitter, which he says, most influential films from our childhood. So Jesse, do you have a most influential film or films from when you were a kid?
I mean, probably the most influential films for me, or things that really stuck with me, would be stuff I watched like a lot with my dad, and like Close Encounters of the Third Kind, or with the Third Kind. Like, I think that one really stuck with me because it scared me when I was little, and then it also, I found it like mesmerizing, and I was consumed by the idea of someone, you know, becoming so consumed with the idea of something and making mashed potato mountains. And there was the musical aspect of it too, which I found very captivating. And my father and I would watch that movie quite a bit, and he would always do the Close Encounters, boo, boo, boo. He would do the Simon Says thing all the time. I mean, I guess that, and like, trying to think what else. I mean, Jurassic Park for sure. Like, that was, I caught that at a young age, at home on VHS, and was like, I thought it was the most magical movie I've ever seen. Like, it had dinosaurs, which I loved, and they were brought to life, and I didn't know how they did it. And it was scary too. That's another movie that scared me. Like, both those movies, both Spielberg films, scared me. I couldn't help but also be like totally in love with it and wanting to watch it over and over again, even if it like gave me nightmares. And like Star Wars, I guess, because Star Wars was just on repeat in the house all the time as like comfort food.
Like, oh, just put Star Wars on there.
Yeah, like Star Wars like a big deal, and then when Episode 1 came out, like, my mom was super excited, and we went and saw it, like opening weekend or whatever, and like, I don't remember how I felt about it, but I was just like, whatever, Star Wars. And yeah. So I guess those were like big movies, I guess, from when I was a kid. Because I mean, my childhood is mostly the 90s was when, that time era was when I was really like becoming influenced by stuff. So yeah.
I think mine was in the 80s. So that's when I think of being a kid, that's mostly what I think of. And it's kind of the stuff that I still to this day talk about on the regular basis. So like Gremlins is like it's definitely the first, horror or genre movie that I remember watching for certain. I mean, I was like, I think like 5 years old when it came out, something like that. And I remember watching it and having the crap scared out of me because I was like 5 years old and was terrified that fucking gremlins were gonna be under my bed and shit. And I still to this day love that movie. I watched it a lot. Big Trouble in Little China, another one that I watched a lot, and that's something that, like you were saying, I watched with my dad first time, and to the point where I didn't even realize like John Carpenter directed that movie until I got older, and then I came back across and I was like, oh hey, it's John Carpenter. I just knew that it was Big Trouble in Little China, and watched that a lot. And probably like, it's probably like the same thing. Like, I think like any of the Steven Spielberg stuff, pretty much everything that Steven Spielberg did back in the 80s was probably pretty influential on me just because I saw it a lot, right? Like Jaws, I watched a lot when I was younger. Still watch it, a fair amount to this day. So those are probably, the ones that I think I would say probably the most influential from when I was a kid. And, stuff that Spielberg produced as well. So like Goonies, which actually Phil Faso posted something up in the Q&A and says he watched a Goonies documentary on Amazon Prime and it was only like 30 minutes long. And he's wondering if it was an extra on a DVD or Blu-ray. and I'm gonna guess it's probably the little short thing that they put on the DVD when the Goonies DVD came out, like whatever that was, like 15 years ago. There was some little retrospective piece that was on there that was not really all that informative or interesting. And actually, speaking of Goonies, that guy who owns that house just stopped letting people come through it because people were vandalizing his property.
There you go. People ruin everything.
Pretty much. It's the same like week that the Silence of the Lambs house went up for sale. I don't know why anyone would want to fucking live in that house.
I don't know, man.
Some creepy ass shit.
Yeah, people like that shit though, you know.
So let's see here. We have a question here from Zach on Twitter. He's at ZachWW Movies, and he is asking us how we are feeling about the new Victor Frankenstein movie. He says the new trailer was kind of cool. So what do you think, Jesse? Victor Frankenstein. That's fucking Daniel Radcliffe and what's his name, right?
Yeah, the wanted guy. And I'm blanking on his name right now.
I can't remember it either. I'm not even gonna look it up. So
yeah, but shit. Yeah, I can't think of his name. Anyway, yeah, it could be fun. It could be super fun. I hope it doesn't. I hope it plays into the sort of B moviness of it. That it, I hope it's something like that. I have pretty low expectations. They don't seem to do well with the Frankenstein franchise or whatever you want to call it. The Frankenstein IP. They
public domain though.
Yeah. So cuz every couple of years they have to, do something with Frankenstein centric film. Yeah, I don't know. I hope it's super fun. That's another one Max Landis either co-wrote or he wrote the screenplay for, so
I think he did the screenplay. Whether or not it's still the same one that he wrote,
right?
I don't know. But
no, I'll check it out. I mean, it could be fun, but I also have very, very, very James McAvoy. Thank you, Phil Faso. So yeah, I mean, it looks like could be good fodder, but I don't really have high expectations for it.
And I've seen very little of it, but just the fact that Max Landis wrote it has me interested. So I'm gonna watch it for sure. So should be interesting. I don't know. Can't be terrible. I don't know. Daniel Radcliffe tends to make fairly good choices in the roles that he picks, I think, too. Right?
Yeah, he's very selective in his what he's chosen to do after Harry Potter. So
I think a lot of the folks who were in the Harry Potter movies, or at least the kids, right? Like not all of them, but yeah, I mean, like Emma Watson has made some pretty good calls on some stuff.
Yep.
Daniel Radcliffe and even what's his name that shows up in all the other fucking movies. He was one of like the Weasleys, right?
Yeah.
I don't remember his name, but the stuff he's been in's been all right too. So
he's a redhead. You can't remember his name. It's fine.
Yeah, he doesn't have a soul. He's a ginger.
Yeah, he's not a real person.
So next question is from our friend John Squires at Freddy in Space, and he's asking, would we rather that George Miller make another Mad Max movie or direct Man of Steel 2? And at first I thought he was just trolling, and then I did a Google search and I was like, oh man, like they're actually saying George Miller might do Man of Steel 2. I haven't seen Man of Steel, but I'm gonna guess that, like, I guess I'm kind of surprised that Zack Snyder wasn't just like, yo, that's mine, because I want to do every fucking Batman and Superman movie. But I guess it also makes sense because he's already doing the Batman stuff that's coming out, so the Batman versus Superman, and then probably doing the Justice League stuff, so he's probably too busy to worry about Man of Steel 2. But I would rather that he makes Mad Max, but if he directed the sequel to Man of Steel, I would probably be more interested in actually watching it.
It could be more like if he's able to have as much control as he could, he can make it maybe give it a little more life than the first movie had. Like the first movie didn't have too much life in it, and maybe his touch could brighten them bulbs a little bit. But I would kind of prefer another awesome, dope Mad Max movie. It's a hard decision. I don't know. I guess I'd rather lean towards Mad Max. I mean, I would love to see another one of those. So I don't know.
Obviously, but I mean, I don't want too much of a good thing either. I don't know.
That's true. We don't want Thunderdome to happen all over again.
Exactly. But I mean, we'll see. But I think that I would be more interested again in watching Man of Steel 2 if it was George Miller's Man of Steel 2 than pretty much any of the other folks that may or may not do it. So I guess that's my stance on it. So next one is from our buddy Chubby Rain at Golden Buddha 19. And he is saying, in honor of Baghuul, what is the least scary horror villain that tried too hard? So,
Leprechaun.
You're probably right. Like, I was gonna say, like, it's something I'd have to think of, but
because Leprechaun's neither scary, and then when it tries to be funny, I think it is just the dumbest piece of shit. And there's no you can't. It's either you have to go B movie or you have to be like actually terrifying, and it can be neither. It's never been either or. It's just a hunk of shit series.
Yeah, you might be right. I mean, well, you are right, but I don't know if I can think of another one where it was necessarily trying too hard and it just wasn't scary. So it's weird too, because like Freddy Krueger is kind of in that territory, like, except for the fact that the first Nightmare on Elm Street movie is kind of creepy, and there have been some uses of Freddy that are creepy, but some of the shit, it's just like too much, right? like because he's the little quipster, but the Leprechaun is all that bullshit. Like, it's all just the quips without any of the good stuff, really. I mean, he doesn't really kill people all that interesting. You know what I mean?
Right, no. And he's not that fascinating as a character. It's all bad. It's all bad.
Yeah, and someday I'm going to make you watch all of them, Jesse.
That'll be the day I quit the podcast.
No, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. So, whether you like it or not, I'm going to rape you with the Leprechaun.
That prom night retrospective is actually Leprechaun retrospective in disguise.
No, I could not watch all Leprechaun movies in 2 weeks.
Oh.
I don't think I could do it. So another question from Chubby Rain is favorite 2 home movie murder reels from Sinister and Sinisterer. So, I mean, my 2 favorite is probably, so I guess I would pick one from each. And I would say that my favorite one from the first Sinister is probably the yard work one. And that's just because that shit makes me cringe when I think about it, even now. And I think probably from the new one, and we can, we'll talk about a little bit more about the movie when we get to it, but is probably, it's probably the one in the church.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the main piece, right? Like, that's obviously the big thing that everything's building up to in the movie, but I mean, it's pretty intense, and
it's pretty unsettling, and it's,
I mean, there's some fucked, and we'll talk about that. I'm gonna wait to do that until we get to the movie, but there's some other stuff in there that's pretty fucked up as well. So what about you? What do you think?
For me, it was just the opening shot of Sinister when the people are on the tree.
Oh, and you see the thing come down and cut off the branch.
Yep. Like, that one for me, like, I don't know. if it was just because of how that film opens that stuck with me the longest, but for whatever reason that one like disturbs me that I can still picture it. Yeah, in the second film it's definitely the church scene, which is yeah. I mean it's yeah. I mean, there's no real contest in the second one. You know, there's some moments of note, but I feel like that one in particular is just like that's the one they spent the time to make you like feel very uncomfortable about.
Well, it's definitely the longest one.
Yeah.
Like it just kind of goes on and
And that
on and
music, oh my god.
yeah. Yeah.
But,
Again, like I still think that the score for those movies is really what it comes down to. So
very effective.
And I think if they didn't do it in that manner, I don't know if either of them would be nearly as well. I don't want to say as good as they are. Well, I will talk about that later. And let's see here. This next one is from let me see here. Phil Faso at Death Ensemble, and he just says "Et buttfuck." Just saying. Hashtag ET buttfuck.
Hashtag ET buttfuck.
Just saying. So I guess I gotta agree. ET buttfuck. I still don't even remember where that came from. I know that we talked about something, and then you were like talking about butt fucking ET, but I don't remember the context of it at all.
I'm not entirely sure. I think it had to do with people's childhoods or something. I don't really know. Basically, I just want to go to a theater and just show somebody butt fucking ET.
There you go. You can have that.
Yeah.
And then Paul, who let me see here. Paul said a couple things. So he said that's the most well-kept I don't shave beard ever. And to that I say, well, I do go over it with clippers because I can't have like a mountain man beard because my job will not let me. I can do what I have here, but it can't be like fucking giant like beard getting in the way of everything. And I don't think I could handle that anyway, because then I'd get like food stuck in it. And that's just too much. So and he also says Bon Jovi is a real prick, and I'd be like, fuck you, Jovi, your stage name sounds like a French brand of anchovies.
It's true. Jersey sucks.
And then he's apparently like going wild because he's saying that he's drunk, but you are talking about a cop car and he has a homemade nightstick and it's not my cock, $sign.
I think I retweeted that one.
And now he's also saying that I have a baby face under that scruff that he wants to pinch. And he changed his name to the OG douche Baghuul. Oh, Paul. At Scooch Slam on Twitter. He's obviously having a good night tonight, so cheers, my friend.
Keep at it, Paul.
And now I'm drinking one of my favorite pumpkin beers, which is Elysian. It's the Great Pumpkin, which is probably almost my favorite. I think my favorite is still Smutty Nose Pumpkin Ale. So I think that's it for the questions at this point. So there's might be some other stuff in my regular feed, but again, just send them over with the hashtag Dead Air Podcast, because if you just tag me on them, I can't keep up with it right now because my notifications are still going bananas. So that is a thing that is happening. So I think that this is probably a good time to take a break for a few minutes and then come back and talk about Sinister 2. What do you think there, Jesse Baghuul Bartel?
That sounds good,
Does that
man.
Sound like a plan?
Sounds like a plan, man.
Got your Baghuul buddies? Is that
hanging out today?
Baghuul buddies are like
Baghuul buddies. You get them at Toys R Us.
I got some stuff to say about that. We'll get to it. So, all right, we're gonna take a break for a few minutes. So, if you got to get a beer, take a piss, punch somebody, whatever you feel like
Masturbate.
you need to do. beat off real quick, if you want to furiously beat off to Jesse, you can freeze frame. Look at this. How can you not think that Jesse is just so sexy? Look at it.
One,
He's got tattoos. He's doing
2,
workouts.
3.
So,
Yeah.
all right. So we'll be back in a few minutes, and we will review Sinister 2, Sinisterer.
Electric Baghuul.
Yeah. Electric Baghuul. Baghuul.
Baghuul.
So don't go anywhere. Guard your assholes. Hashtag ET buttfuck.
All night.
All night, all day. We'll be back.
He came here for peace and rest.
Hi. Ready to play?
But now, he may rest in peace. It's been waiting for him.
Don't worry, Roger. I hope I use it's the last thing I do.
Now, it wants you. House. Rated R.
Coming soon, consult your local newspaper for showtime.
Some cultures believe Baghuul fed for the corruption of innocence. It's the kids. He gets the kids.
Children, have you ever met the bogeyman before? Hush, hush, hush. Can't you with me, Cal? Can't you with me? Can't you with me? Can't you with me?
Sinister 2, rated R, August 28th.
Although it's not August 28th because it's first. So they fucked up. They fucked up that trailer for Sinister 2, that TV spot, because I didn't want to play a whole 2-minute trailer because I couldn't handle 2 minutes of just loud jump scare noises in my.
Didn't they like move it back and then they moved it forward again or something?
They might have. I mean, I'll be honest, I haven't really been paying a whole ton of attention to it over the last year or whatever. Although, so Sinister 2, like I said, directed by Kieran, I think is how you say his name.
Caesarean
section.
Mm-hmm.
And written by Scott Derrickson and was it C. Robert Cargill? Is that his name? I think.
Sure.
I think. So
Scott Derrickson did write it. Okay.
Yes, Scott Derrickson directed the original one.
Yeah.
And I think he didn't co-write the original one. I believe he just directed it. And the guy who wrote the original one wrote this, and Scott Derrickson wrote it with him. So
right, yeah.
So I mean, to the point where I was laughing because last night on Twitter, I think it's Rob Hunter from Film School Rejects had tweeted out, did the people who wrote Sinister 2 even watch the first one? I quoted it and was just like, yeah, they made it.
No, it looks like he was a co-writer on the first film.
Was
too.
he? Okay.
Yeah.
So he did do co-writing duties. So it's from the same folks, and quite frankly, I would imagine that Scott Derrickson probably would have directed it, but he's kind of busy doing Marvel stuff at this point because he's doing Doctor Strange.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see why he probably didn't want to spend time working on Sinister 2. Was made for about $5 million, I think, is what I heard. So it's definitely going to make money this weekend. So anybody out there, if it doesn't come in at first place at the box office, before people start being like, "Oh, look,
it's a failure!"
Like, no, it's not a fucking failure because it cost them like a drop in the bucket to actually make this movie. So $5 million, and I mean, it pretty much picks up right after where the first one leaves off, right?
More or less, yeah. And it follows the same, he's now an ex-cop in this one, but the
official credit is ex-deputy so-and-so.
Yeah, ex-deputy so-and-so. So he's back, and he is now burning down the houses where the murders have happened because of the whole Oswald incident. And so he's going to go to this house to burn it down, but there's this mother and her 2 kids, 2 sons in it, even though they shouldn't be in it, but it turns out that she's trying to get away from her abusive husband. So that's how that complicates the narrative, that complicates everything for him because he can't just burn the house down now that these 2 people are in it. So he decides to do some more investigating on the murders that happened there, which were, very similar to everything else, where a family was murdered in a very strange ritualistic way. And it kind of goes from there, I guess. It's
well, and it's important to note that it's not necessarily so. He's like, well, I can't burn it down because they're living there, but as long as they stay there,
it'll be fine
and everything's okay. Because the way that the pattern works is that whoever moves into the house where the murders happened then moves to a different house, and then that's where the people get killed, right? That's how that works, because it spreads, right?
Mm-hmm.
And goes all across the country and shit, as fucking Vincent D'Onofrio told us in his uncredited cameo whatever in the first movie. Talking about Baghuul. So,
and Baghuul is back to possess the one son, and you know, he kind of shows up every now and then, and he's lame every time he shows up, because every time he shows up it's just some kind of dumb jump scare.
Well,
And
and you know, we can talk about that because I mean, I understand why. Like, I understand the functionality of his character, and I understand kind of. I mean, it's kind of at a tough spot where they need to have it, and I don't know how else they could do this without having to kind of go that route. So part of it is that they need to have a recognizable face, and just having a bunch of like little dead kids who have like weird, bad CG faces on them doesn't necessarily, you know what I mean?
yeah, no, it doesn't work really. It's not really creepy, and it doesn't help that like the child actors are not very good. Like, you know, like it's hard to be convincing that it's scary when the, you know, the people are trying to be scary are just kind of like it breaks, sort of breaks the experience for me.
Well, kid actors are notoriously
bad,
difficult to work with, and is that, you know, I heard because the director was on Killer POV a few weeks back, which is the podcast that's Rob G and Elric and Rebecca McKendry do, and you can find that I think on Geek Nation, and it's a good podcast. And they had the director on to talk. They were talking about like creepy kid movies and stuff, and I guess he kind of. So it's a long story as to like how he got attached to this project, but he was basically Scott Derrickson saw his first film, which is Citadel, which is actually like a really good movie. I don't know if you've seen it, but
I haven't. No,
I think it's on Netflix. And also, like, even if it's not on Netflix, I think you can get the Blu-ray right now for like $6 or something like that on Amazon. It's totally worth it. And that movie is essentially about a dude who gets attacked by a bunch of like kids in hoodies, and they kind of like threaten to shove this old like rusty used needle into him, and so he gets agoraphobic and has trouble leaving the house, and his wife dies, so he has to like take care of his son by himself, but he can't leave the house, and so it's this whole difficult thing, and he kind of ends up going on this down this rabbit hole at some point where he finds some like supernatural type shit, and there are a lot of kids in that movie, and so I guess between that and the other thing, they kind of were just like, hey, you should direct this. And quite frankly, the main reason that I was even looking forward to this one at all was because he directed it, and I was like, I really like Citadel, and so I think that he could do a good job with this, because I think there's something to be done here. But at the same time, I always get a little bit cynical whenever it's a sequel to a horror movie, because I'm like, well, they're just gonna do the usual and just give us more of the jump scares, and you know what I mean? Like, it's gonna be like a bunch of stingers and maybe some bullshit, but at the same time, I was hoping maybe it'd be all right. So my question to you, Jesse, is like, did you have any expectations for this film going in, and did the movie meet, or did it, I guess, did it go the way that you expected it to, or did it, I don't want to say surprise you, but, you know, did it go against what you were thinking, and why, if that was the case?
So I didn't really have any I mean, I guess my expectations were pretty low, because it wasn't like, I liked the first one, but I didn't really necessarily want to see more of it. I didn't think that Baghuul was like this marketable horror villain guy. And it felt like from what the trailers I'd seen that they were going to like lean more heavily on like the kids stuff, and it was going to be like this weird Children of the Corn thing. So I wasn't like all that excited for it. And then, you know, the reviews came out and they were pretty bad, but then I read the reviews and they were like unable to really like actually articulate why they didn't like it. So I was like, okay, I think you're just hating this because it's just easier for you just to like write this off and not actually like think about it. And then you told me in a private conversation that the director said that this movie was, it's not as it is, necessarily marketed as, which, I take with a grain of salt in that, he's trying to still sell me a product and this and that, but I ended up going in and watching it, and I was kind of surprised. I didn't think it was a great movie. It's pretty unremarkable in a lot of ways, but there is something to it that when I was watching it, I was like, I kind of was engaged with the film, which for a lot of these sort of like Blumhouse, horror movies that have come out recently, that I haven't been like, I've kind of like been in a real like grouchy mood when I'm watching it. Like, Jesus, can this really be happening? Like, I wasn't rolling my eyes like I was when I watched the Lazarus, effect.
The Lazarus Project.
Lazarus.
The Lazarus Project effect. No, it was the Lazarus effect. But
okay, a Lazarus effect.
I was just making fun of it. Sorry.
With this film, I was like, I found that the non-scary bits, like the weird Lifetime movie that was going on in the forefront, was far more compelling to watch, and like with this weird sort of like murder mystery behind it, like that was all cool, and like the abusive dad, and like there was like this really great buildup of like there was real characterization going on, which I liked, which I don't see a lot of in like modern theatrical horror films anymore. The movie spends time trying to really give these characters like some dimension, and I think they do it in a lot of great ways, and they have these small character moments that really flesh out these, what they're going through, why they're there, and everything. But ultimately the movie falls flat when it decides that it really needs to lead into like the sinisterousness of it all. And
wait, what? The sinisterousness?
Yeah, like the sinisterisms, like everything that makes that movie sinister is like the downfall of it. Aside from the final sequence, which I thought was really well done. Everything else is just like, it kind of takes me out of it. I'd rather see like the movie of them on the farm, like dealing with like the crazy dad. Like, I'd rather see that movie than the other one they had to tell. And but I mean, I think in the end, it's not very remarkable. It's pretty forgettable. But there is something to it that I think that can't be ignored. It's definitely better than any of the critics are giving it credit for.
Yeah, that's a weird thing too.
What's that?
Well, so like you were talking about the Rotten Tomatoes score when we were talking the other night.
Yeah.
And it's super low. But I was reading like how they always have the
blurbs.
Like, there's like a blurb, and then it's like rotten or fresh, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's either like the splat or it's the tomato. And a bunch of the ones that were listed as being rotten, like the blurbs weren't necessarily bad. Like they would be like, well, it's not great, but it's creepy as hell.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how is that a bad review? Like, it's not like saying that it's not great doesn't mean it's bad. You know what I mean?
Right. And there's a couple of them, and I'm pulling up one here. Like creepy kids and sick jokes make for meager scares, but Ransone, I don't know how to pronounce his name, is likable as the film's beleaguered hero. Nothing in Sinister 2 came across as okay. So, but a lot of them, a lot of the rotten scores are not like, they're not articulated well as into why they did not like them.
They're just like, I didn't like it because it's a sequel to a horror movie.
Yeah, one of them was kids aren't scary, get rid of them though, and Sinister 2 might be. Narratively and formally, Sinister 2 is a lot of the same old. It's like Kramer versus an evil spirit in this low rent sequel. The only loser here is the audience. Like there's a lot of
they're just trying to get blurbs, man.
I know. It's
Kramer versus Baghuul.
It's like nothing in Sinister 2 comes across as believably scary. And
Although
it's like
not Kramer versus Kramer,
yeah.
like at all.
No, not at all. Just because there's like a slight domestic dispute between children does not make it fucking Meryl Streep movie. But it's just, when I see that kind of stuff, it's like, okay, well, I'm the kind of guy that will probably lean towards more liking a genre movie if people are not going to actually have anything to say that's like that they can, properly like,
Gotta
come
back that
across.
shit up.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you tell me why it's not good, because I think that if you do kind of sit and look at this movie, there's a lot to be like, hey, that like they did here was actually kind of great, and then, but then there are parts of it that are just, they're not good, and that's, it's unfortunate, but
well,
it could have been a lot worse, is what I'm trying to say.
And I think you're right. I mean, I think my initial reaction was, well, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was gonna be.
Right.
Because it's not, and like it's weird because I think the more that I get away, I mean, I only watched it last night, but the more that I get away from it, the more I'm like, like it's kind of all right. Like, you know what I mean? It's I don't think it's bad, but I think there are some bad things about it.
Right.
It's certainly not perfect, and probably the dumbest fucking thing is the end. And
where they added a whole other scene that is just like, they did that in the, if I remember correctly, they did something similar to that in the first film, right?
Kind of, but the first film was kind of trying to fake you out on something, and they like that was supposed to be like the twist, right? And based on that, and again, I don't want to spoil what's going on in this movie, but there is a similar type thing going on here where they're trying to subvert your expectations, but the problem kind of here was I already knew where they were going because A, it just made sense, and B, that's what they kind of did in the first movie in a way. And again, I'm not going to get too specific on it. I mean, because I don't want to spoil anything for anyone who hasn't seen the movie. But so I get that, and that's okay. I don't necessarily have a problem with them repeating things, because that's, at the end of the day, like, sequels shouldn't be too terribly different, because I mean, it's okay for them to stand on their own, but they should have some kind of commonality, or if you're going to make a series of films, they should have something that makes it feel like that film, right? Like that franchise or whatever. Otherwise, you just have a series of movies that are just vaguely connected, which, I mean, I guess it can work, but that's more like, you might as well just get into anthology series on, you know what I mean? So, but really with this film, there was just, it's not even just necessarily that last section. It's almost like the entire like final wrap up of the movie, I felt, was probably not the original ending for the film.
Right.
And I know that they changed it for a fact, because the director said that the studio was like, yo, you have to go and reshoot the end of this movie. Like, he said that. And he said that the original ending that they had just wasn't flying, whether it was because of like test audiences, which it probably was. I think that's what it was, is the test audiences said that they really liked the movie, but they hated the ending. So I think there is noticeably a point towards the end of the movie, as things are resolving, that it almost feels like something changed like that. You know what I mean? And I can't really explain it. When you watch it, you can kind of feel it. It's almost like, hey, something just shifted, and now we're kind of going down this path that just seems odd. And especially the very last like couple of minutes of the movie is definitely just tacked on for some bullshit. Right. Like bullshit. Like, not even just like partial bullshit. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I can feel that, and I can feel that there's definitely some unevenness to it there, but but like you were saying, I really like the family stuff that's in there. Like, in fact, I've said several times that the scariest fucking thing in this movie is the father character. Like, and the shit that he does is like just
That's creepy. That's scarier than anything Baghuul could do.
the dinner scene, like the dinner scene where everybody's at the dinner table.
Mm-hmm.
Like that just made, like, I was, you know, again, without getting into anything, but where he's talking about how you're supposed to eat your food and shit.
Right.
And I was just like, oh my God. Like, I just really want someone to beat the ever-loving shit out of that guy. But at the same time, you're actually worried for the characters. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I think that Shannon Sossaman, I think her name is, like, she does a really good job as the mother. I think James Ransone is okay as well as the deputy. And it's funny because he was just supposed to be like this bit part in the first movie. He's deputy so-and-so. He was just there to be like stock character guy who like connects the dots for Ethan Hawke.
Right.
And now he's kind of the lead of this movie, which I don't think was by accident. I mean, I think that partially they probably did that because that was really the only way that they could do anything with this story. But also just, I think that they probably realized how kind of funny that is, you know, and just to take a character who's not really supposed to be anything and make him the main guy in the new movie. And you know, he's good too, and I like the story between the mother and him and how they get along. I thought that they had good chemistry. Like you were saying, like the whole fucked up Lifetime movie that's going on here is compelling, and I think it is. I think it very much is. I get why they needed to have Baghuul, because they need to have something, because otherwise it's just, hey, it's a bunch of dead kids or whatever, and they have to tie it back into that first one. I don't think it does any favors that Scott Derrickson apparently has like some crazy fetish for fucking like Scandinavian weird metal and like music. Like he really does, from what I can understand. And I have a feeling that a good reason as to why Baghuul looks that way is because he's, you know, Scott Derrickson is into kind of something that's tangentially related to that culture of like black metal and corpse paint and shit. Like you were posting the picture of the dude from, was that Slipknot?
Yeah, Mick Thompson.
Yeah, and it's like, it really just looks like that with fucking corpse paint built into it. And like it worked in the first one because it was kind of creepy because you could only kind of see him, but here they're just like, yo, he's gonna walk around.
Yeah, and you're like, eh.
And he shows up and it looks like fucking Michael Jackson with melted face. Like literally looks, because he's got like that like fucking like late era Michael Jackson like stringy like black hair. And when you see him like up close and with the new color palette, because the first movie kind of had like this washed out brown color palette, and this one kind of goes for like more of this cold like bluish like hue to everything. Which it looks good, right? Like it looks good in a lot of the scenes and stuff. But when you see like Baghuul come out, it's just so cheap, because in the first one, the only time you ever really saw him was in the tapes.
Right.
And here you fucking see him without all that like layer of grain and shit just like obscuring him. So it's just like dude in bad mask walking around. Like not even doing anything fucking scary, because at the end of the day, like, he doesn't even fucking do anything. It's like the kids that do this shit. And the kids aren't fucking scary because the kids are fucking terrible actors. And the effects that they use on the kids in this movie are just like
the worst.
Dude, they're so when they make the shift and they start being like, hey, look, these kids are actually evil because they're dead.
Yeah.
Like, and you get that like thing where their faces get all weird. And that's not a spoiler at all, I don't think. But when you see that, you're just like, wow, that looks really cheap. But then especially when they start like fading in and out, and it just is like some shit that I figured out how to do when I was like 10 years old with a camcorder. You know what I mean? Like they don't go back and forth very well. And I get it. And there are a few parts, I'm not going to lie, there are a few parts where the kids are in there and occasionally they will hit some note that's kind of creepy. Because of what they're doing and because of what they're saying. Like there's a few parts, but I just feel like it's difficult to actually pull it off. And I don't envy, what the director had to work with here, because you're working with kids who, again, like I said, notoriously difficult to work with, not only just because of like shooting hour restrictions that they have because of like labor laws and stuff, but because they're fucking kids. They're like 10 years old. You expect some like 10-year-old to be able to act really well. Like they're not all fucking Haley Joel Osment, and when they are, look what happens. You know what I mean? Like that dude has not been doing so well for himself. Well, I think he's kind of back on track now, but that's just because he's weird and creepy and semi-fat and still looks the same. And he shows up in Kevin Smith movies, apparently.
Yeah, and he does that sex ed movie.
Yeah, I have not watched that yet, but but I don't envy that task, and I understand that it's a difficult thing, but it's weird because it's like a necessary evil, and it's like everything about this movie that makes it kind of fall apart is all of the baggage that it has to have to be an actual sequel. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
No, I know what you mean. Like this could have been a better movie if it weren't a Sinister film, but unfortunately, it has to be a Sinister film, and therefore it's hindered by that. And yeah, I know exactly what you mean, I guess.
But at least they did something different, right? So
at least they did. They tried. Like I said, I felt like there was enough material in here that I was actually like enjoying my time watching the movie, even if it wasn't panning out perfectly. Like I was sitting there and I was like, wow, I'm actually like interested to know like the outcome for these characters. I'm really actually invested in these characters. And usually nowadays, like I don't give a fuck about anybody on screen. But with this one, it was like they took time to really say that we care about these people. You should care. You should care too. Yeah. And that was, that means a lot to me as a viewer. And I really dug it. Dug that part of it. I didn't really dig the movie.
Right. Well, and that's what's difficult about it, right? Because at the end of the day, it's like, okay, well, do you like it or do you not like it? And it's like, well, I can't say that it's a bad movie because it's not a bad movie. It is a flawed movie. But again, and I'm going to probably keep going back to this for the rest of the fucking year, but man, I watched The Gallows this year. So you want to talk about like shit? And that just happens to coincidentally be another Blumhouse film. And I know you've got opinions on Blumhouse joints these days. Specifically, Jesse, your name should more likely be like Jesse. Your movie's too fucking loud for me, Bartel.
No, definitely. I mean, like the whole thing with the Blumhouse films is that they have to be so fucking loud and they have to put jump scares in there when they just seem completely inappropriate. And it's just that bugs the shit out of me. Like that's what really gets me, because that's not horror to me, like it's just not. And it's a cheapening of the experience is all it is. And people who specifically use jump scares and not in a very clever way are cheapening the experience and cheapening the idea of what horror films should be. Right. Not to say that not that there are good jump scares. I mean, there are times when they're actually like in It Follows or something like that, when it's actually used very well.
Or specifically, like you want to talk about Blumhouse stuff, so like The Gift,
right? You're just like it's just, but yeah. So that was another thing that really bugged me. But
well, and specifically, like these movies always seem like, so I guess we can blame Brian De Palma for this, right? At least to an extent, we can blame him because of Carrie. Because now every fucking movie has to have that fucking gotcha jump scare bullshit at the very end of it. To just be like, oh, look, stinger. and it's like, okay, well, does that serve any part of the story? No. Oh, it's just there because we're going to try to just get one more jump out of you. But I mean, I guess it works on the intended audience for the movies. I do like the fact that this was an R-rated movie still.
Mm-hmm.
I do like it. So, you know, again, this isn't, I don't think that this is us talking shit about Blumhouse at all, right? Like I don't necessarily have any animosity towards them. Do you, or is it?
No, not necessarily. I mean, I think I do not agree with some of their decisions or his decisions, but he's done a lot in order trying to keep.
If it's even him, though.
If it's even him, but I mean, like, regardless, like, I'll just point the finger at him. But I mean, it's.
I don't care if it's your fault or not. I'm holding you accountable.
Jason. Yeah, you're a bitch, Jason. You're a bitch. But like that company has done a lot for horror and like independent horror, and whether it's good enough is completely questionable. And you know, whether we get more bad movies is also questionable. But you know, if it weren't for his involvement, you know, it's like what horror movies would we have?
None
in the theater.
I was thinking about it the other day, and I think Blumhouse is the only like production company at this point that is getting behind movies in the like $5 to $20 million range.
Yeah, because none of the studios are taking a fucking chance on horror films anymore.
No, they would rather fucking spend $200 million to make Fantastic Four piece of shit.
Yeah, or like for 2 Pixels or something like that. Like they'd rather take the chance of, you know, getting, you know, names they can trust or whatever that is and putting out a bad movie than actually like making a good horror movie. And the only horror, you know, films that matter, the franchises that matter are the really, really big ones, right? So we'll see more of those, but in terms of anything that's different or new or interesting, you're going to be very hard pressed to find it. It's all going to be VOD or, you know, limited screening. Right. But, you know, Blumhouse is kind of, you know, hopefully you will get a really awesome Jason Blum, you know, horror movie that will, you know, skyrocket, and, you know, maybe they'll, you know, the genre will get more attention and go ahead.
I was just going to say that their model is basically what the studio model used to be, which was let's make a bunch of movies for a reasonable amount of money each.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them may do okay. Some of them may not do a lot. But then occasionally you're going to have 1 or 2 of them that are going to do so well that it offsets everything else, and then everybody's happy. And you know, I don't see anything wrong with that. Like I don't even have a fucking problem with The Gallows getting a release like that. So I think it's a terrible movie, and I think it's everything that's wrong with modern horror. But it was like a $100,000 movie, and they put it out and they made money off of it. Do I want to watch a sequel to it? Fuck no. I don't want to watch a sequel to it. But at the same time, you know, they put it out there, and I guess I wasn't in the audience for it. I'm sure somebody enjoyed it, but the fact that it did okay and that it made money at least means that they're going to keep putting out stuff. And quite frankly, like you were saying, like, I think if it wasn't for Blumhouse, like what would we have in the theater as far as like horror stuff goes? And at least when Blumhouse puts out a movie, like they don't care if they get an R rating. If they get an R rating, they don't go back and make it PG-13 just so that it is PG-13. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like they put out the movie as an R-rated movie. I mean, this movie's an R-rated movie. They could have very easily made this not R-rated by just cutting a few things, like very little. There's 2 fuck bombs that are in there, I think, and they work. Like they're in there, and I get it. They're there for a reason, and like the C word, right? So the cunt is in there.
Mm-hmm.
But it's effective and it works in the movie. And if you take that out,
because it shows up and you're like, oh shit, like, oh okay, like I know what's going on now.
It escalates shit.
Yeah,
it's in there purposefully, because I was watching it and I'm like, this movie's R because nothing's and then I was like, oh shit. Yeah. And then there are like a couple moments that are a little bit like overly graphic, I think, compared to the first one especially. But so those could have been trimmed back, and they could have trimmed back the other stuff and made it a PG-13 movie. But then it really just would have, like, I can tell you, they could have done that very easily, cutting the running time down very little, but it would have been a much worse movie for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I at least respect the fact that they were just like, look, this is a $5 million movie. We're going to make our money back. Let's just put it out the way that it's supposed to be. Instead of like some fucking $100 million movie where they have to appeal to everybody. And they're, you know, everybody's afraid to fucking put out a, you know, $50 million R-rated movie because they're like, we're going to lose money on it.
Mm-hmm.
So I respect that. You know what I mean? I can get behind that.
I definitely, yeah. Like, I think, it's problematic, the Blumhouse thing, but he's not doing anything that was so different than, say, you know, maybe like Roger Corman was doing or anything like that. Like, just on a different scale, of course.
Closest thing we have to that these days.
But somebody who's turning over a profit very quickly and is on to the next project and, you know, makes back their money in the first weekend. And if they make over the money in that one weekend and they don't make any more, that's fine. You know, and if they make anything else, then that's another blessing. But for them, they're just having huge turnover. And, you know, I'm interested to see where it goes. It seems like the company's really expanding, but I just hope that we get better. At least I would watch another film that was like Sinister 2 and that it was, you know, compelling, you know, has issues, but it's compelling. Because I'd rather watch a horror movie that's bad, but has something in it that will keep me invested to the end, rather than just watch a bad horror movie.
I was gonna say I wouldn't even say like watch a movie that's bad, but watch a movie that has flaws, right? So watch something that's imperfect. Watch something that has problems.
Right.
Then watch something that just is shit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can tell you right now, like, you would hate the fucking Gallows. Like, you would.
I know I would.
Hate it.
And I don't want to watch another Ouija. Like, I don't want to watch, like,
we will though. We're gonna watch Ouija 2 next year.
I know we're gonna watch another one, but I mean, like, I don't want to watch another type of that film because that movie's just bad. Like, that movie's just bad on all accounts. And that movie's another example of, like, you could see, like, everything wrong with that movie is just all around everything that's wrong with people making these movies. But
this movie was almost all white people too, by the way. There was one
guy.
That priest. That's about it.
That priest shows up. He was the but
token black religious guy.
Yeah. But yeah, Sister 2 is not as bad as people are gonna portray it. And, you know, I would say it's a solid thing. Like, I don't think you need to run out to the theater to see Sinister 2, but I think when it's at home, you should really give it a chance. And especially if you're a fan of the first one, because I think that people who are really like the first one will, you know, find even more to like here. People who hated the first one will find nothing to like here. But
well, it's not necessarily true, because I think that and this is this might be a controversial opinion, but I almost think that this movie does more in the way with the characters than the first movie did. I think that the first movie had good characters and had good actors and stuff, but I almost feel like the actual, like, family drama that's going on in this movie is a little bit better than it, like, or at least higher stakes than it was in the first one.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? In the first one, it's just like, yo, this kid is having night terrors and shit. But they're not really night terrors because it's mostly just sleepwalking and doing weird, yo, I showed up in a box and now I'm bent over backwards screaming. Whereas this is actually like fucking terrible ass husband / father just being a complete fuckhead. You know what I mean? Like, awful. Like basically holding a family hostage. And I don't want to say much more than that because it's kind of a spoiler in a way. I mean, you know something's not right from the beginning, but I like the way that they layered it on there and peeled it back. So I almost think that there might be some people out there who didn't necessarily care for the first one, but maybe they'll get something out of this. I wouldn't count on it, but I wouldn't be shocked if somebody did find it interesting, even though they weren't necessarily in love with the first film. So, I mean, sounds like you're basically just saying that at the end of the day, if you like the first one, watch it. If you don't like it, then skip it.
Yeah, because I don't think I just don't think that if you did not like the first one, you'll have the patience to kind of with this one. But I think that even if you had some interest in the first one, that you will find at least something here. And if you really liked it, of course, I think you'll automatically watch this one. I just be patient with it, I think, and don't listen to the haters too much, because there's something there. There is something in Sinister 2 that is almost heartfelt. It's yeah.
I gotcha. I gotcha. And I think I'm pretty much on the same wavelength. I don't think that, like I said, I think the more that I think about this, the more that I like it more. I don't think it's great. I don't think it's as good as the first one. It's definitely not as effective, but I think that the strong points of this film are the family drama stuff that's there is very affecting and very well done. I think the character stuff is done. I think that, like I said, I just want to hug Shannon Sossaman because I just feel so awful for her. I think the one kid I feel so bad for in a lot of ways, and you're just like, God damn it, that kid's life just sucks. And I think that Ransone's character, I like him. I especially like there's a scene between him and a bunch of other not sheriffs, but they're fucking cops, whatever. And there's a scene where he basically fucking stands up for the mother and the kids, and I thought that was really well done. I actually was like, oh, good on you when he did that. I think that stuff works. I think that the score is just fucking creepy as shit. I mean, we didn't really talk about the death tapes here so much, but they're meaner than the first one.
A little bit, yeah. There's a animosity, or there's a nastiness to them that is grisly, and just there's a lot of attitude, and I mean, I think especially the church scene, I visibly, probably there's only one or two other people in the theater when I saw it, but I visibly grimaced at that scene, because I just thought it was absolutely disgusting. And
the fucking Christmas one was pretty rough too, in a way, because it's weird because you're watching it and you're like, wait, and then there's just one quick final shot where you see something and you're just like, oh, these fucking people, that's and the kids, and it's even more fucked up because, like I said, they're not good actors or whatever, but the kids are just like, oh, this one is mine, and you're just like, oh, Jesus, that's kind of fucked, because in the first one he's just watching the tapes, he just finds them and he's just going through them, and you don't have these kids being like, oh, look, this is mine, you need to make a good one. And it's just like, Jesus, that, I get it, that's kind of fucked up, but it's just too bad that these kids can't act. Right. So yeah, I mean, good and bad. I would say, like I said, pretty much the same thing. Is if you don't like the first one, then I think Sean Savage asked me, he was like, so if I didn't like the first one, should I watch this? And I was like, nope. I think my quote was LOL, no. Which is basically if you found nothing compelling in the first one, you're probably not going to find very much to like here, unless you just want to oppose everybody else out there who's going to talk shit about this.
Right.
If you're a contrarian, then you're gonna love this movie because you're just gonna have so many people that you can argue with. But if you're looking for something that's like super creepy, maybe not so much. I think I'm definitely still interested to see what the director is gonna do next. I still think that there's talent behind this. I just feel like partially some of the studio interference stuff that's going on is problematic, and I think just the fact overall that it is a sequel and that it's beholden to certain things. And quite frankly, like I said, Baghuul is awful, terrible, stupid.
Yeah, he's like almost more lame in this one or something.
Because he doesn't like I said in the first one, he's not like walking around just being like, "Yo, I'm Baghuul, bitch."
Hey, yo.
Like in this one, he just like shows so the first one he's just like photo bombing. And that's about it. And in this one, it's just like he just walks around, but he's not really menacing because he doesn't do anything ever to anybody. Ever. He just shows up and then there's a loud noise and then someone's like, "Oh my God." You know, like the only ones who do anything in this fucking movie without spoiling anything is the kids, right? Like, and that's stupid because they didn't do that shit in the first one. But in this one, they're like throwing shit all over the place. Like the whole end of this movie is just people throwing books at people, basically. I'm not even going to go into it anymore. It's the kids are the biggest. The kids in Baghuul. So it's weird because it's just like this movie could have been good if it wasn't a Sinister movie. But it kind of needed to be a Sinister movie because you needed to have. I mean, it needed to have that backbone, but. Maybe they just shouldn't have shown shit. Maybe he should have just still only seen Baghuul in the tapes. That probably would have been the way to go, actually.
Yeah, that would have been better.
And not have the fucking kids. But I get it. They wanted to like show you the process of the kids getting like quote unquote like inducted, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Baghuul Hall of Fame.
I don't know how they could like show the kids getting, inducted without having all these other kids and all this other stupid shit. So I don't envy the task that they had in front of them. And, I think they did all right with it. Would you watch a Sinister 3?
Yeah, I think I would. I got faith that they could pull off like a really, really awesome one. But more than likely it would be bad.
It's gonna have fucking Baghuul in it. You know that shit.
I know, right? Just Baghuul. It's all the movie from Baghuul's point of view. No, I think
Baghuul. It's the prequel.
No,
it's all about how he became Baghuul.
He's just in Iceland playing in a metal band.
He's like, "You will burn churches for me."
He's in Slipknot for like a while, and no, I don't know. I'd watch the third one for sure.
All right.
It has legs to be interesting, but I don't have high hopes. But I'd watch another one.
I would watch another one just because I watch everything. But
sure.
So yeah, I think that's it. We don't have any other new questions, so we're gonna wrap stuff up at this point. So thanks everybody for listening. Again, you can find all of our other stuff at deadairpodcast.net and. Use the links, other stuff coming. Come back next week. We'll be here to start talking about prom night retrospective and whatnot. And, fun stuff. Keep your eyes peeled. And Jesse, you want to tell people where they can find more of you on the internet besides it?
I'm D's nuts. I'm running for president.
That was just it just sounded like you were singing Baghuul.
The boogeyman. Just Google search at Destroy Superman. The at symbol and then Destroy Superman, and then it'll probably link you to like everything in my life. So that's the best way to find me.
So it'll be easier because once I get the website up, I'll just be like, go there, and there's a link.
Go to the website and.
There's no website right now though.
Yeah, so you can't do that.
So
someday.
Maybe someday. I'm just gonna put fucking Baghuul in the background.
If you Google search @destroy Superman, in the images you see a picture of Michael Myers giving me a blowjob. So
Yeah.
yeah, it kind of works out.
Yeah, if you look hard enough, you'll also find pictures of you and Baghuul.
You'll see Baghuul in the background.
Fucking photobombing, dude. Like, that's what he does. He just shows up. He's probably, like, in the background of mine right here. Like, somebody freeze frame shit. He's probably, like, over there. Right there. See, right in the back, over there in the corner. He's just going to show up. He's going to be like, oh.
He'll be like, boo!
I'm King Diamond.
Grandma.
So yeah, I'm everywhere, but you want to find me on Twitter @DeadAirJeff. It's easy and probably the best thing. So that means I think that's really it. So I think we're gonna call it a night here. Thanks everybody for listening. We appreciate it. Thanks everyone for asking questions. And again, if you want to get your questions into the show for next week, you can even start now. Doesn't matter. Use the hashtag #DeadAirPodcast. Other than that, you want to drop us a line, you can get us at deadairhorrorpodcast@gmail.com. And like I said, find everything deadairpodcast.net. So until next week, don't hang out with Baghuul because he will fuck up your pictures.
He'll ruin your Polaroids.
Don't let Jesse near your ET dolls because he will fuck them in the ass.
You'll find a hole.
Don't let Chad near your bathroom.
Because it'll explode it.
Pretty much. Drink all the pumpkin beer.
Mm-hmm.
And don't fucking die.